Number 10. Spider-Woman. This betrayal is a little more subtle, but it definitely led to some trouble for both characters down the line, so I think it's an important one to mention still. Jessica Drew was in Madripoor with her friend Lindsay and Patch, aka Wolverine. She knew he was Wolverine, and he knew she knew at this point, I believe, but he still went by the alias of Patch because Logan thought he was being oh so sneaky, and he didn't want the world to know that the X-Men were actually alive at the time, even though I feel like anyone that met Patch probably knew it was Wolverine. Jessica had decided to take up a job as the Prince of Madripoor, Prince Baran's bodyguard, but Patch thought it was a bad idea because Baran was a bad guy. At the same time, Jessica was giving Patch grief for working his muscle and getting involved with Tiger, a powerful crime boss in Madripoor. Both felt the other was betraying their own sense of morals and thereby betraying their friendship, so it was kind of a two-way betrayal in these characters' eyes. In the end, Patch was right to criticize Prince Baran as Jessica ended up near death after stumbling upon the Lazarus Project during her shift in the palace and barely escaping with her life. Patch likewise would have a trial ahead as he wrestled with the mysterious Lazarus Project, but he'd forgive Jessica when he found her and help her to get to safety and get much needed medical attention. She was pretty messed up. Don't you hate when that happens? Don't you hate when you stumble upon mysterious projects and then you just get like thrown into a sewer because you're like in such a terrible condition? I know I do. Number 9. Gambit. In this case, Gambit wasn't entirely in control of himself. He was under the influence of the Shadow King, who had possessed him and made him fight against Logan. Wolverine happened to be the one to face off with him. He managed to get the drop on Gambit, defeating him in battle when Wolverine successfully pinned him down. This all happened too after Wolverine had been cut off from the rest of those X-Men who were not influenced by Shadow King, but as Wolverine said while Gambit was busy throwing insults his way, he is one of the best when it comes to winning fights. And regardless of being cut off from support, that is exactly what happened here. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about more superheroes who have been betrayed, oh no, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Wolverine. Laura Kinney, formerly known as X-23, and Logan have quite the complex past. Laura is basically a genetic female counterpart to Wolverine. Some consider her a clone, and some consider her more a genetic offspring, kind of like Logan's daughter. In reality, she's kind of both, to be honest. When Logan first came across Laura, he realized that she had been brainwashed and wasn't in control of her actions. Able to sympathize, he did his best to free her. She was supposed to go straight to the X-Men basically, but decided to venture out on her own instead, which resulted in her getting in a fight again with Logan next time that he ran into her. However, he was able to not only defeat Laura this time, but also basically talk her down and bring her back with him to the Xavier Institute, helping her to find a home among the X-Men. And now the two are very close, and I don't think Laura would even consider fighting Logan again unless she had like absolutely no other choice, like if he turned evil or some such thing. But then honestly, she wouldn't be betraying him really because the Logan she knew would probably like want her to take him out. I feel like he's also the type of guy that's kind of like, you know, I've lived a long life, like I'm kind of fine, but I guess I gotta keep living, bub. Number 7. Fantastic Four. When Spider-Man was just starting out, the Fantastic Four were among those to betray him. I know, shocking. Spider-Man went to them looking for help supporting his Aunt May and himself. You see, back in those days, and kind of in general with Spider-Man and his comics, money was tight, and Spider-Man was trying to find a way that he could use his talents and his abilities to help pay the bills. He was hoping to join the FF, who he assumed must have a salary wage as superheroes that would be reasonable in amount due to them, you know, saving the world all the time. Unfortunately, that was not the case. He broke into the Baxter Building in an attempt to impress the family of amazing superheroes, only to find out that they were a non-profit organization and they didn't really get paid to do what they did. And even if they had space on the team and could afford to pay Spidey, they claimed initially they wouldn't really want him. Ouch. Spider-Man at the time was considered an outlaw by the press and police, and they didn't want to be affiliated with him even. Harsh. Of course, that's all water under the bridge now, and Spider-Man has actually been a member of the FF's Future Foundation and is actually on the extended or backup roster for the Fantastic Four team. So it all worked out in the end, but in the early days, it was a pretty harsh betrayal. Number 6. Morbius. Morbius and Spider-Man have had a complicated history. Sometimes they're allies, sometimes they're foes. Morbius himself also has had a complex history. Sometimes he's a hero, sometimes a villain, sometimes he's a little more somewhere in between those two. Case in point, when he resurfaced after seemingly being cured of his vampirism by a bolt of lightning. I kid you not, that is what happened in the comics. This stuck for quite a while, but eventually Morbius's hunger and his thirst for human blood returned. He attempted to reach out to a doctor at Empire State University for help, but instead ran into Spider-Man, who didn't trust him. It turned out that he was in earnest trying to figure out what was going on and fix it, but the doctor he wanted help from turned out to be an ally of Hydra. She kidnapped Morbius, and when Spider-Man came to free him, things quickly went kind of crazy. Instead of teaming up with Spider-Man and showing gratitude for this rescue, Morbius attacked his captors, and then when Spider-Man intervened in that attack, attacked him instead, draining him of blood and inadvertently turning Spider-Man into a vampire-like creature himself for a while, who was known as Hunger. Also, I know there's gonna be people that are gonna be like, Amanda, Morbius does not want blood, he just wants plasma, Amanda. It's just all about the plasma. Look, the plasma's from the cartoon, okay guys? And they had to say plasma because they couldn't say blood because it's a kid's show. So fun fact. Although plasma is important as well. You can donate plasma and you can donate blood. There's lots of cool things you can donate. You should check that out and go save someone's life today. This just became a PSA from Amanda McKnight. Can you tell that I donate blood? I feel like you can. Number 5. Spider-Man. Although typically this hero is often known by the name Scarlet Spider. That is right, we are talking about the hero and Spider-Man clone, Ben Reilly. Currently in the comics, Ben is the Spider-Man, or a Spider-Man, currently roaming New York City. He is the Spider-Man of choice by Corporation Beyond, who is looking to get into the business of superheroes, apparently. They acquired the right to the Spider-Man name, and as such, Ben actually asks, or kind of more tells Peter, that he can't be Spider-Man anymore. Or at least he can't use that name. He does ask for his blessing as well out of respect. He's not trying to be a jerk here, but it's obvious that Peter is hurt by this revelation, as he already seems to be suffering from a bit of like an identity crisis perhaps, which is also pretty interesting because I feel like so is Ben at this point. Number 3. Hulk. The Hulk has always been a rival of Wolverine's, despite the fact that both of them are heroes. In fact, Wolverine made his first appearance in Incredible Hulk issue 180, where he fought against him. Hulk has dropped in to fight Wolverine a few times in the comics, and sometimes does so just to prove that I guess he's the strongest between them. Although it doesn't always end that way. In fact, quite a few times their fights have actually ended more in a tie than anything. Some of Hulk's other personas, like Joe Fixit, have also gotten involved with Wolverine, and even when Fixit has meant well, there is an animosity between these two that generally leads to Fixit causing more trouble for Logan during their adventures. This is usually because they each have their own approach to dealing with problems and with baddies. Although, I guess, to be fair, it seems that the Hulk usually also feels betrayed, which is what leads to their fighting. But even the slightest thing can set him off, so these betrayals are usually just from some like small remark that Wolverine has made. So in the end, I always feel like Wolverine is more betrayed by the Hulk because he's just like said something offhand, and then the Hulk's like, now we have to fight. It's like, whoa. Breathe, it's okay. Number 2. Magneto. Sure, Magneto was a villain when this one happened, but he also joined up with the X-Men only to turn on them later, and vice versa. It's happened a lot. Magneto might, in general, be thought of as a villain because of his iconic classic appearances in the Fox X-Men films, as well as the X-Men 90s animated series and in the classic comics, but he's really more complex than just being a villain. In fact, currently in the comics, he's more of a hero, I'd say. However, that doesn't change his history with Wolverine, who is understandably a little less likely to trust former villains turned heroes because of history like this. Magneto is the one responsible for ripping the adamantium right out of Wolverine's skeleton back in the day, which was insanely painful and left Wolverine in a more feral state for a good long period in the comics. He also lost his nose because of this, and this all went down after Magneto had been acting more heroically in the comics, working with the X-Men on behalf of Charles Xavier in his absence. In fact, Magneto was like the leader of the X-Men then, so if you want to be like, but he's a villain, he was definitely a hero and then he went back to being a villain. He felt like other people were betraying him. The tension between the two characters has remained ever since and even shows up in the current X books, despite them both residing in harmony on Krakoa. Magneto only ranks a little lower here because he is so iconically a villain in many folks' minds still, but to me, he's a hero. Number 1. Cyclops. Cyclops has betrayed Wolverine multiple times in the comics. Probably one of the biggest betrayals happened either when the two couldn't agree and so created their own X-Men teams separate from one another, each believing their view on young mutants and how to train and teach them was superior, or when Cyclops recruited Wolverine's female clone / genetic daughter onto the Black Ops mutant team X-Force against his wishes. Laura, aka X-23, aka now Wolverine, had just recently escaped those who saw her only as a weapon and a tool to be used, a deadly killing machine, which was exactly why Wolverine did not want her on the X-Force team. But Cyclops saw how useful she could be and felt that if she was willing to join, then it didn't really matter what Logan thought. Wolverine evidently disagreed with his outlook. He disagreed quite strongly. Number 10. Iron Man 2099. One of the Iron Man 2099s anyways. This one comes from the 2099 future of the Iron Man Armored Adventure series. Here 2099 Iron Man is a hero named Andros Stark, who is also Tony Stark's grandson, but becomes an antagonist in the series. All because he travels back in time to defeat his grandfather, Tony Stark. However, this is because Andros believes Tony is to blame for creating the AI menace known as Vortex in his time. He attempts to kill Tony and the Avengers, but later realizes when they aim to use a virus to defeat him that this nanotech virus is actually Vortex, and that Vortex therefore only existed in true timey-wimey paradoxical fashion because it was created to defeat him, Iron Man 2099. In other words, Andros and his attempt to stop Vortex was also the cause of Vortex's existence. Man. What a time travel story. I feel like time travel and Tony Stark go together just like bread and butter. This is just always a thing that happens. Number 9. Iron Lad. Iron Lad probably didn't mean to betray Iron Man back when he was known as Iron Lad, but the reality is he was destined to do so. This is because Iron Lad goes on to become the famous Avengers villain Kang the Conqueror, along the way also becoming Immortus and using his power to at that time manipulate and influence Iron Man to get him to do his bidding, to help him direct events in a certain way. Kang / Immortus are generally all about manipulating the timeline so that they can achieve their own goals in the future. They're like, I'm gonna set everything in motion, then I'm gonna go to the future, and then like everything will be great for me Kang, or for me Immortus. And unfortunately, Immortus's machinations this time around caused Iron Man to be pulled into his plot, and eventually turned into Immortus's own sleeper agent, making Iron Man turn on his friends and then become a villain. Boo. And like I said, Kang and Immortus are technically Iron Lad, so technically a hero, at least to start with. And friends, before I move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more betrayal lists, be sure to let us know who you want to hear about getting betrayed next. So many people have been betrayed, so many people. Number 7. Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde didn't intend to betray Wolverine. It wasn't really her choice at all. She was brainwashed into doing it by Wolverine's longtime rival and old teacher, Ogun. Ogun was looking to get revenge on Wolverine, and so psychically uploaded a bunch of awesome ninja and martial arts skills to Kitty Pryde's mind, and then sent her to assassinate her mentor, friend, and fellow X-Men, Wolverine. Fortunately, the bond between Logan and Kate was so strong that they were able to work together to defeat Ogun in the end, freeing Kitty but leaving her with an experience which had changed her forever. She returned to X-Men a little more mature and definitely more of a badass. I think she still has all of that like assassin knowledge in her brain as well, taking up the new name for herself for a time at least of Shadowcat. Yeah, it was really more Ogun than Kitty betraying, but even if she was being controlled, it was still her own physical form fighting against Wolverine. And this is a cool story that I just enjoy revisiting, so I saw an opportunity to put it on this list and I was like, I'm gonna do it. so I hope you enjoyed it. Number 6. Mariko. Mariko Yoshida was one of the major loves of Wolverine's life. The two were even engaged to be married, but Mariko, being the good person that she was, wanted to make sure that her family no longer had any criminal ties before the wedding happened, as she was now the head of Clan Yoshida. Unfortunately, before they could get married, Mariko died during her attempt to broker peace between the rival criminal gangs. She ended up going to hell and would later meet Wolverine there when he was sent to hell by the Right Red Hand. Or at least, his soul was sent there. His physical form was still on Earth, but it's a whole story. While his soul was there, his suffering would manifest in him being tormented by Mariko, his former love. She didn't want to torment Wolverine, but she pretty much had no choice. Despite this, Wolverine, when he escaped, came back and tried to free her, but Mariko believed she deserved what she got and chose to stay in hell, refusing to let him save her. I think she felt pretty bad because she was like, I feel like I betrayed you, and also I got stuff to atone for, you know? Number 5. Scarlet Witch. As much as I hate to include someone like Wanda on this list, it kinda has to be mentioned that she technically betrayed all of mutant kind with decimation and M-Day. Of course, I will still argue that this really only happened because Wanda's mental health was often shafted in her past, and so her kinda snapping after House of M made a whole lot of sense. While Wolverine was still Wolverine, there were a lot of mutants, and I mean a lot, that were affected. The whole community felt this blow, and Wolverine was part of that community, so even though he still had his powers, he was still hurting a lot, I think. I think a lot of mutants were. Also, he was one of the first people to realize what had happened in the House of M reality, and he was not too happy to have a fabricated life made for him and be denied the reality and history that were true to him, no matter how bleak or painful in comparison to the world Wanda had made for him and everyone, in an effort to try to make herself, her family, and pretty much all other supers happy. I love how Wanda's like, I just want to give everyone a reality where like we can all be happy, you know? And everyone's like, how dare you? How dare you try to make me happy? Obviously, I feel very bad for Wanda, I think you can tell. Number 4. Professor X. Oh bub. Professor X, for being the head of the Xavier Institute and for being a leader among his own X-Men team who claims to stand for mutant and human harmony and preaches about what it means to be good and be a hero and fight for all of humanity united, has a lot, and I mean a lot, of skeletons in his closet. He has betrayed the X-Men multiple times, Wolverine included. I think mainly this has to do with Professor X choosing to suppress as opposed to acknowledge and deal with his darker side. He put his team in danger when it was revealed that Danger Room was actually sentient and itself a living AI mutant who then pursued the team in an effort to get to Xavier. And also technically came equipped with knowledge on all their weaknesses, by the way. Danger Room is scary. Or just Danger, sorry. Just Danger, that's what the mutant version of Danger Room is called. Additionally, Xavier's repressed negative emotions and his severe punishment of Magneto was what led to the creation of the psychic entity known as Onslaught, which was sort of a blend between those two psyches. You could also argue that even in modern comics, Wolverine has felt betrayed by Professor X. When X chose to allow all mutant villains to come to Krakoa and call it their home, Wolverine was one of the few people to protest, thinking it was a bad idea that would inevitably backfire. I guess we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Although I feel like based on Inferno, Wolverine may have been right here. Number 2. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel and Iron Man used to be super close, but then Civil War II happened. They are over the events of Civil War II now, in present day, but boy did this initially muck up their friendship. After the success of Civil War I, Marvel thought a second Civil War was in order, but this time, the motives behind it, they weren't quite as solid. Carol Danvers believed that the inhuman Ulysses' visions of the future that might come to pass, and were somewhat unclear, should be acted on to protect humanity. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but okay. In other words, Civil War II was Minority Report. Iron Man, being down this road before, tried to talk Carol out of this madness, but after Rhodey died when a prediction of Ulysses's came true, there was basically no stopping her. Kind of odd as well, as though Carol and Rhodey are often a couple in the comics, and I do ship them together, Iron Man is definitely one of those that is closest to Rhodey, and even with Rhodey's death, Iron Man still thought that Ulysses' visions shouldn't be held in such high regard, so you'd really think that Carol might have, being more open to listening to him. Carol fought against Iron Man and a line was drawn. A very weird line that didn't really make a ton of sense, but hey, Civil War II, everyone. It is what it is. It happened. Now we have to live with it. Number 1. Black Widow. Black Widow majorly betrayed Iron Man in the Ultimate Universe, and sure, it's not main continuity, but it's honestly, it's so bad, it needs to be acknowledged and mentioned, and that's why it took my top spot. In the Ultimate Universe, Black Widow was only posing as a hero, but was really, in secret, a villain the whole time, simply pretending to defect to get in with the heroes and then betray them and betray the United States. She was engaged to be married to Tony Stark and ended up breaking off the engagement when she revealed her true colors. She attempted to steal Tony's fortune and tragically killed his loyal butler and his friend Jarvis as well. So sad. In the end, Tony was able to stop Black Widow because he had given her a suit of armor as an engagement gift, but made sure to still have control of the nanites that were in her blood because of his terrible track record with women. Too bad he wasn't able to save Jarvis though, it's pretty sad. Black Widow would get hers in the end, but Tony would feel the pain of this betrayal for quite a while thereafter. Number 10. Captain America. Or a version of Captain America at least. This version of Captain America betrayed a whole bunch of superheroes and pretty much all of the civilians of the United States of America. That's right, we're talking about Hydra Cap, who technically now is an alternate, but at the time of reveal was sold as being a longtime sleeper agent of Hydra in the main continuity, changing pretty much everything we thought we knew about that character's origin. In reality, Captain America was simply altered by the Cosmic Cube, and the real version of him from the main continuity still existed within the cube, or shards of the cube itself. He was technically changed by a version of the Cosmic Cube that was a person who was named Kobik, but anyways. Peter himself actually also lost his company, Parker Industries, as a result of Hydra Cap's takeover. To keep his various offices around the globe from falling into Hydra's hands, Peter had to basically run them all into the ground, essentially destroying everything he had built. If that isn't a betrayal, I don't know what is. And it's Captain America! Shocking. But not really, because it's Hydra Cap. Like I said, alternate reality. Whatever. Number 9. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is another hero who kinda accidentally, I suppose, betrayed Spider-Man. While in the comics, Strange recently saw Peter as his champion in a fight between Strange and Mephisto, in the MCU, Strange tried to help Peter out with the fact that he and his friends all seemingly got rejected from the colleges they'd applied to because of his identity being revealed to the world. Doctor Strange decided to use a spell that would make the world forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, even though it was also against the new Sorcerer Supreme, Wong's, wishes and his recommendations. Now, granted, Steven did mean to help Peter here, he wasn't like intentionally betraying him, but in the end everything went kinda haywire, mainly due to Peter, who kept trying to change the parameters of the spell as Strange was mid-casting it. But this isn't really how Strange betrayed Peter anyways. It was more afterward, when other villains from across the multiverse ended up appearing in the current reality, and Spider-Man wanted to try to help them as opposed to just banishing them after finding out they were all pretty much fated to die, which Strange had kind of seemingly known about but just didn't really care about. Strange had told Peter to round them up, but withheld that important information about their fate, which to me was a pretty major betrayal. Like, these are people from the Spider-Verse, I feel like you should at least tell Peter what he's doing and what kind of fate he's condemning these people to if he sends them back. And of course, this revelation only led to another betrayal in kind when Peter decided to release these villains, helping them escape Strange in an effort to actually fix them. What can I say? You betray someone and then they're probably gonna betray you back. That's how it goes. Number 8. Boomerang. Okay, so Boomerang isn't really a hero. He's more of a villain than anything, but for a moment there he was leaning in the direction of being a hero at least, and I think because of that we can give him a spot on this list. Boomerang is known for being a member of the Sinister Syndicate and ended up getting roped into Sinister War. Before he was battling it out with all the other Sinister teams though, he was actually almost Peter and Spider-Man's ally and friend at one point. In fact, I would say he was Peter and Spider-Man's ally and friend, and roommate. Okay, so in reality, Boomerang was just using him to get help collecting pieces of a tablet that he wanted, but that's where the betrayal part comes in. When Fred Myers applied to be Peter Parker's roommate due to Myers' reputation, Parker really wasn't feeling it. He wasn't so sure, but he did decide ultimately to give Myers a chance after he kinda helped him out and kinda saved his life. And when he did, he was happily surprised. The two became friends, and Boomerang even showed promise as Spider-Man's ally and a potential hero in his own right. In the end, however, once the tablet was acquired, Boomerang revealed his true colors, and admitted that this was kind of his plan the whole time. But he also admitted he did feel bad for betraying Spider-Man in a letter that he left him. Myers actually felt so bad he ended up helping Spider-Man out at one point during Sinister War, helping him to hide from the others for a time. Aw, so cute. Also, I just really like this story, so I was like, I could talk about this on this list. And I got excited, and here we are. Number 7, Ant-Man. Hank Pym has done a few things to portray a good amount of the Avengers, but this time around, we're actually talking about a version of him that merged with Ultron. I think it's called Ultron Pym is what we usually call this version of Ultron, fun fact. I'm calling it Ant-Man though because it's a heroes list, but Ultron Pym I think is the general name. Hank and Ultron had united to become one being, which ended up messing them both up, as you'd imagine, in Ultron Agenda. Tony at the time was dating Janet Van Dyne, and Ultron Hank, or Ultron Pym, did not like this. His plan was to fix the world by turning everyone on it into a sort of organic and AI merged being, and wanted Janet to basically merge with Jocasta and act as his partner and in essence part organic, part AI, Robo-esque bride. Because Tony was with her, this pretty much infuriated him, and so the two faced off, with Ultron Hank trying to kill Tony because of his relationship with the Wasp. What a weird story. So many weird stories. Number 6, Eric Killmonger. Eric Killmonger isn't really so much a hero in the main continuity, and in the end, he didn't end up being so much a hero in this reality either, but he did pose as one for a good amount of time and was a member of the Guardians of the Universe. Although he did try to betray them as well, having his own objectives. So, important to note. Killmonger became Iron Man's right-hand man in the Disney Plus streaming series What If, in the episode titled What If Killmonger Rescued Tony Stark? What would have happened? Well, Killmonger would have pretended to be a friend to Tony Stark only to later betray him and kill him in cold blood. 1, because he pretty much hated everything that Tony represented, but 2, because Tony's death was kind of all part of a plot to try and provoke a war between the US and Wakanda so that he himself could defect to the side of Wakanda and thereby take over the nation from within, using Stark's technology to win Wakanda's favor when he helps them to defeat the US. It's a pretty bad betrayal though. It's pretty tragic. I was like, man, wow, that's crazy. That whole episode was crazy. I hope we get to see more of it. Number 5, Iron Man 2020. Iron Man 2020 is Arno Stark's Iron Man. In the comics he just went by Iron Man, but editorial wise he was referred to as Iron Man 2020, just to make it more clear that this isn't Tony Stark Iron Man, and also because that was actually the name of the series that he was a part of. Arno Stark, by the way, is Tony's brother and was the natural born son of Maria and Howard Stark, whereas it was revealed that Tony himself was adopted. Arno was hidden away for his own protection and also was not able to roam freely in the world due to him being born requiring medical assistance to breathe. In the end, Tony would learn the truth of his being adopted and about the existence of his brother. The two would team up for a time, but when Arno took up the mantle of Iron Man and combated against an AI rebellion, in the end he believed the best way to protect humanity was to control all the AI and the humans with his submission code. But when he asked his brother Tony to join him, Tony saw that Arno pretty much needed to be stopped, as he'd become a danger to the world and its free will. I just feel bad for Arno, man. Can we bring Arno back yet? Is Arno doing anything right now? I don't think Arno is doing anything. I feel like he's still in his bubble. And I think he's going to die soon, which is why we're keeping him in a bubble. Number 1, Iron Man. Iron Man is probably one of the characters most well known for betraying Spider-Man on this list, even though what he did to actually betray him is somewhat debatable in terms of it being considered, like a 1-for-1 betrayal. Iron Man encouraged Peter to join him and support the Superhero Registration Act. Spider-Man happened to be such a big fan and friend of Tony's that he agreed to do so, and even unmasked for Tony Stark during a televised public statement. However, later on this would come back to bite Peter in the butt when he and his family ended up being targeted by criminals who wanted Spider-Man dead. Surprise, surprise. Aunt May ended up in the hospital as a result of a targeted attack, and eventually this whole debacle would also lead to Spider-Man losing his marriage to Mary Jane when the pair made a deal with Mephisto in order to save Aunt May's life. There is even a what if focused around what would happen if Mary Jane was the one to be killed, where Peter specifically blames Iron Man for basically everything bad that has happened to him up till this point. Well, not everything, but everything surrounding this. Also, he realized what was going to go on with Iron Man wanting to use like the negative zone kind of as like a prison, found out that, and then he was like, I'm really not about this. And then even then, they chased Spider-Man down. Although I believe Iron Man was kind of like, guys, let's just talk to Spider-Man, let's not be weird about this. But at that point it was too late. Iron Man really had no control and it had gotten out of hand. That's what had happened. Civil War I, baby.